I thought tonight, Barb and I talked about what my presentation might be, and we finally decided that I should talk on William Barker Cushing. Many of you will know that he was a daring Union naval commando. In fact, in 1957, there was a book published called Lincoln's Commando about William Barker Cushing, who is most famous for destroying the Confederate ironclad Albemarle on the Roanoke River at Plymouth in late October of 1864. With most of you familiar with that episode, which was so key in this area of the state during the Civil War, that I thought I would talk about William Barker Cushing and what led up to that fateful moment that made him, in the North at least, an international hero. So we'll start on February 29th, 1864, about 9 months before that fateful trek up the Roanoke River to go after the Albemarle. At the mouth of the Cape Fear River, and you know that the Cape Fear River is as far in the southeastern corner of our state as Currituck is in the northeastern corner of the state. And I know it because I just drove 250 miles to get up here today. It's a long way. In 1864, this young man made it his mission to try and kidnap a Confederate general whose name was Lewis A. Hebert, H-E-B-E-R-T, who commanded the defenses at the mouth of the Cape Fear River. Now, William Barker Cushing was commander of a blockading ship called the Monticello. Now, to make a raid behind enemy lines would take authorization from his commanding officer. So Cushing went over to see James Madison Fraley, who was on board another ship, and told him what he wanted to do, what he planned to do. And Commander Fraley said, "I can't authorize that. If you succeed, we'll both look good, but if you fail, I'm going to be the one that's going to pay for it. So, no, I do not grant you permission." Well, Cushing's motto was, don't ask for permission, just ask for forgiveness if it doesn't work. And so on February the 29th, with a hand-picked crew of volunteers, Cushing would row from his ship, posted off the mouth of the river, across the bar at the mouth, right here, and his destination was the town of Smithville, now Southport. You can see that. And so in the dead of night, with muffled oars, this crew, with Cushing at the lead, went across the harbor. Their destination was Fort Johnston and General Hebert's headquarters. About midnight, they landed at the town. Most people, of course, at that point are asleep in bed, including Confederate soldiers in their barracks. And upon landing, Cushing learned from a couple of African-American young men where General Hebert's personal quarters were. And they guided him to the house. And Cushing sneaked into the house only to discover that General Hebert was not there. As it turns out, he had gone to Wilmington, 26 miles upriver in the day, and would not return until the following day. But in the commotion, he managed to capture General Hebert's chief engineer, Captain Patrick Kelly. And then Cushing said, "I realized where I was and what I was doing, and I thought the better part of valor was to get out of there while I still could." And so he went back to his ships, and his men started back across the harbor, but another Confederate officer in the house had discovered them and set off the alarm. And Cushing later wrote that the Confederate soldiers were like the old man who's looking for his glasses that are on top of his head, but he still can't find them. They could not find us, and we escaped back across the bar. And the next morning, I turned over my captive to Commodore Fraley, who was furious that I had done what I'd done, but I had succeeded. Not the end of the story. Now, Patrick Kelly had been captured literally in his pajamas. And so Cushing, and I love this about Cushing, Cushing decided to send ashore a boat under flag of truce to retrieve the belongings of its captive. And so the boat landed literally at the mouth of the river at a place called Fort Caswell. The Confederate commander of the fort, whose name was Colonel Thomas Jones, stormed down to the beach to find out what these Yankees wanted with him. And out of the boat stepped Ensign John Jones. I don't think there was any connection. Ensign Jones said, well, we got your boy last night, and we got him in his pajamas, and he'd like to get his personal belongings. Would you send over to the town for his toothbrush and his socks, because he's going to be up in a prisoner of war camp in the next few days? And Colonel Jones did it. He sent a courier over to the town to get Captain Kelly's personal belongings. And as he was gone, you can imagine the moment, the tension between the two antagonists. And they're walking up and down the beach, kind of looking at each other. And finally, the Confederate officer turned to his Union foe and said, "That was a darn splendid affair last night, sir, a darn splendid affair." He's giving credit to the Yankees for pulling this thing off. And a little while later, the courier returns with Captain Kelly's personal belongings. And Jones gets into the boat to return to the Monticello. Oh, and he said, "Colonel, by the way, I have a card that Captain Cushing would like for you to give to General A. Baer." And the card read, "My dear General, I regret that you were not at home when I called last evening. Sincerely yours, W.B. Cushing." And Colonel Jones was just absolutely furious, and he said, "You will never, ever cross this bar again. You will never get away with anything like this again." And Jones returned to the Monticello. Well, that was Cushing. That's the kind of stuff that he pulled off. He was just a daring, intrepid Union naval officer who made a name for himself in what were called cutting out expeditions during the Civil War. And in doing so, struck fear into the hearts of his antagonists. But also made a big name for himself in the United States Navy. In fact, by war's end, this young man was better known in the North than any other Union naval officer, with the exception of Admiral David Farragut, who you will know captured New Orleans in 1862 and damned the torpedoes full steam ahead would capture Mobile Bay in 1864. And this young man was a household name, though largely forgotten today, because by the 1920s, Americans turned to other, not military heroes so much, as we always had awarded our military heroes with high political offices, the presidency, and so forth. But by the 1920s, our culture changes, and we start celebrating sports people and movie stars, and that's where we are today. But until the 1920s, this guy's exploits were well known. In fact, even today, they still study him at the United States Military Academy, where he attended until 1861. Born in Wisconsin in the frontier in 1842, his father died as a very young man, and his mother, whose name was Mary Barker Smith Cushing, I've often wondered if they called her Ma Barker. Here is a photograph of her in her later years. She had a large family, and she moved from the frontier of Wisconsin back to Fredonia, New York, which is about an hour south of Buffalo, right on Lake Erie. They had strong family ties there, and this single mother thought that this was the best place to raise her large brood of children, including 4 sons. Milton Jr., Howard Bass Cushing, who would be killed by Apache Indians in 1871 out in Arizona. Alonzo Cushing, and those of you who have studied the Civil War will know Alonzo Cushing, who was awarded just 2 years ago, posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for his service with the 4th United States Artillery at Gettysburg, where he was killed on July 3rd, just as Louis Armistead's troops are going over the stone wall. If you've ever watched the Ted Turner movie Gettysburg, he fires that last Parrott rifle of canister as the Confederates are going over the high water mark at Gettysburg, and was mortally wounded there, and again 2 years ago was just awarded the Medal of Honor. His younger brother, and the youngest of the boys, was William Barker Cushing, who grew up fatherless, undisciplined, rambunctious, but a natural born leader, He was the leader of his neighborhood gang. He could run faster and climb higher and fight harder than any of the other boys in the neighborhood, but became a problem. There were disciplinary problems. So the family thought that the thing to do was to send him to an academy, a service academy. His older brother, Lon, had gone the year before to the United States Military Academy. In 1857, the family got, through his mother's connections, she was a cousin to Admiral Joseph Smith, got Cushing an appointment to the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. So he's class of 1861, and he started the academy at the age of 14 years. And here's his first photograph as a young midshipman, and look how young he is. He's 14 years old. So ostensibly he's going to graduate when he's only 18 years old from the United States Naval Academy. Well, Cushing, if the family thought that sending him to a service academy would straighten him out, they were sorely disappointed. This guy ranked more demerits than just about any cadet up to that point combined. I mean, this guy, we would say that he was a party boy. In those days, they called it skylarking. He was not a good student. He did not study hard. He was always pulling pranks and stupid stuff, like putting a bucket on the top of the door of a classroom so that when the professor walks in, he'll get dumped with a bunch of water, that kind of stuff. He became such a problem that the academy was looking for a way to get rid of him, but he had good political connections. After all, his mother's cousin was an admiral in the United States Navy and protected him. But finally, in March of '61, he had gone to Washington, D.C. nearby to visit an aunt. He stayed longer than his pass allowed him to, so they accused him of going AWOL, and they kicked him out of the academy on March 23rd, 1861, claiming that he was deficient in Spanish. So the academy kicks him out in 1861, literally just weeks before the Civil War began. And President Lincoln needed good sailors. Cushing was thoroughly embarrassed and humiliated by the shame that he had brought on himself, on his family, his good family name, and of course the academy. And so he got an appointment to see the Secretary of the Navy, Gideon Welles, and made such an impression with the Secretary that the Secretary appointed him a midshipman, which was just as low a rank in the United States Navy as you could go. Cushing had told him, "Sir, if you will give me this opportunity, I promise you that I will make a name for myself, for the Navy, for our country, or I will die trying." And he lived up to his word, as well as anyone could. Think of Forrest Gump in the United States Navy. And that was William Barker Cushing. He was everywhere. He served on blockade duty of the Carolinas. He was at the attacks on Forts Hatteras and Clark in August of 1861. He was involved in these cutting out expeditions in southeastern Virginia along the Nansemond River. He served on the blockade off of Charleston, South Carolina. He made such an impression on his commanders that within 1 year, in July of 1862, they made him a lieutenant. He jumped 2 grades of rank for that appointment, and at the age of 19 was the youngest lieutenant ever in the United States Navy. So early on, he was already impressing his naval superiors and making a name for himself. He was mostly in the northeastern corner of our state in Virginia. He was on board the Congress during the battle between the Monitor and the Merrimack in March of 1862, the first duel between Iron Titans. I mean, he was absolutely everywhere. He was most known for his service with the Monticello that he took command of in 1863, having made raids up the New River to capture the town of Jacksonville in November of 1862. He was always looking for blockade runners that were bringing in supplies for the Confederacy and trying to hijack blockade runners, going ashore to destroy salt works. One of the raids that he made in August of 1863 was at New Topsail Inlet near Wilmington, about 25 miles north of Wilmington, where he destroyed a New York registered blockade runner called the Alexander Cooper. Now, we know a lot about the English involvement in the blockade running trade. We know a whole lot less about the smuggling trade between the northern states and the South during the war, but it existed because there were people, businessmen, who were patriots to profit and not to a particular cause. And Cushing was livid when he discovered a vessel trading through the blockade that came from his own state. And so he burned the Alexander Cooper to the waterline. And of course, in doing so, he keeps receiving accolades from his superiors, from the Rear Admiral of the North Atlantic Blockading Squadron, Samuel Phillips Lee. He will receive thanks from the United States Congress, which was the highest honor you could receive as a naval officer until 1916. Naval officers could not receive the Medal of Honor until 1916. So when you got the thanks of the U.S. Congress, that was about as good as it got. So this is what he did on the blockade duty, and became well known. And he loved that. I mean, if nothing else, this guy had an ego. And these kinds of things help feed his ego. He loved seeing his name in print. He always sought out reporters and media types to give him details of his latest raids and exploits behind enemy lines. That's what he was all about. Now, as for the Albemarle affair, it started in May of 1864. This is the lesser known part of this story. On May the 6th of that year, the Confederate ironclad Raleigh, which was a Richmond-class ironclad like the Virginia, the former Merrimac that had battled with the Monitor 2 years before, the CSS Raleigh, seen here, made in Wilmington, went out amongst the blockaders off of the Cape Fear River to try and break the blockade so that ships, commerce vessels that were trying to get in and out of the harbor could do it less threateningly. Wilmington by then was by far the South's most important seaport. 80%, the blockade runners had an 80% success rate at Wilmington, so there was lots of money to be made. The goods and equipment and provisions that these blockade runners brought in, mostly from Great Britain, helped the Confederacy sustain its war effort. The lifeline of supplies between Wilmington and Petersburg and Richmond went right up the Wilmington and Weldon Railroad, right up the coastal plain of our state. Robert E. Lee said in 1864, if Wilmington falls, I cannot maintain my army. So the message was clear that by 64, the survival of the Army of Virginia, Northern Virginia, and thus the Confederacy depended upon the survival of Wilmington, North Carolina as a blockade running seaport. And to help break the blockade, the Raleigh, on the night of May the 6th, went out into the ocean. The Union gunboats were not expecting her. This was an odd-looking vessel in the middle of the night, looked like a big giant tortoise as she approached the ships. And when she started to fire on the Union vessels, they fired back, but of course their shots just bounced off of her iron casemates. And so they scattered in the darkness. One of only 3 times during the Civil War that the Union naval blockade of the South was temporarily, at least, broken. 2 times at Charleston, 1 time at Wilmington. But next morning, sun comes up, Union naval vessels regain their composure, reorganize, and go in to try and fight the CSS Raleigh. But the Raleigh was in no longer a mood for fighting. She was running low on fuel, so she turned around and went back into the Cape Fear River. But as she did so, she ran aground. She had gone out through the other inlet of the harbor, New Inlet, out into this area, and she goes back into the inlet, and as she makes this turn right here at the end of New Hanover County, what was called Federal Point, Southerners renamed it Confederate Point during the war, she grounded on a shoal right there at the mouth of the river and became a wreck. When the tide fell, the weight of her iron casemates literally broke her keel. And the Confederates managed to salvage her engines and her guns, but the Raleigh was a total wreck. She's still there to this day. Well, Cushing was not among the Union blockaders that were attacked at New Inlet. In fact, he was up at Beaufort, recoaling and rewatering the Monticello. But when he heard that ram fever had struck his comrades at the mouth of the Cape Fear River, he would have none of it. So he took his ship back down to the mouth of the Cape Fear River and determined to find the Raleigh and hijack it or destroy it. And so this time, with permission, because now he's got such a big name that he can basically do anything he wants to do. Now this is long before there was such a thing as a Navy SEAL, but this is where it begins. Cushing received permission to go onto the Cape Fear River and try to find the Raleigh. He spent 2.5 days on the Cape Fear River, again taking a hand-picked crew of sailors, going across the bar at nighttime under the cover of darkness, hiding out along the banks of the Cape Fear River, and brazenly kidnapping people as they came by, taking a mail courier and hunters and fishermen and ladies who were on horseback going to see their sweethearts at the forts. So pretty soon he had a big group of captives with him, more than he had men. And one of his men went to a local grocery store, dressed up as a Confederate soldier, borrowing the uniform of the courier that they had kidnapped, and going into the store and getting milk and eggs and blackberries and whatever he got, and bringing them back to the men. Well, finally, he learned that the Raleigh had already sunk. He finally got that intel. And so he decided to leave the Cape Fear River, but in doing so, he posted a note on a buoy that reminded Colonel Jones at Fort Caswell of his promise that he would never come back onto the river. And the note basically said, "I'm back." And he managed to escape. The Confederates found him and chased him, but he still managed to escape. I mean, he really was kind of a golden boy. Well, what happened was, of course, he had failed in his mission to hijack or destroy the Raleigh. In fact, he failed in most of his missions. But it was the effort and the publicity that it brought to the United States Navy that the Navy Department so enjoyed and admired about Cushing. So now he can basically do anything he wants to do. And I love this photograph of him taken in 1864. And look at that jaunty pose. I mean, you can tell he was arrogant, he was cocky, but he could back it up too. And if you look carefully in the background, you can see at the time his commanding officer, whose name was Admiral David Dixon Porter. At this point, Cushing is a lieutenant commander, and here is a much higher ranking officer in the background, hands on hips, saying, "That should be me up there, not Cushing." But that's how much the media loved him. He was the darling of the United States Navy. The ladies absolutely loved him. He got constant requests for photographs and autographs and speaking engagements, and he absolutely loved all of that. Well, it was his failure to capture or destroy the Raleigh that really heightened his senses about these Confederate ironclads. And in July, the commander of the North Atlantic Blockading Squadron, S. Phillips Lee, said, "Got a mission for you." Back in April, a Confederate ironclad called the Albemarle, literally built in a cornfield up the Roanoke River, has helped Confederate forces recapture the town of Plymouth. Robert Frederick Hoke's army, supported by the Albemarle and the Roanoke River, was able to recapture Plymouth, and had held it ever since. Until the Albemarle, of course, could be dealt with, then it was unlikely that federal forces could retake the town. And of course, the Roanoke, and indeed all the Albemarle Sound, was still seen as a backdoor to Richmond. That somehow, some way, they were still going to be able to use the river systems in northeastern North Carolina to make a concerted effort into southeastern Virginia. In fact, that never happened. It should have happened 2 years earlier, and they did not take advantage of it, but that's another story for another day. But they had lost Plymouth. They had lost several vessels in the fight in April of '64. And so Lee called Cushing to his headquarters and offered him this opportunity to go after the Albemarle. And of course, Cushing said, absolutely, I'll take it. And Lee probably would have offered it to no other officer but Cushing. So there is his quarry. By the summer, the late summer, Cushing has already made arrangements to have 2 launches that were made in Schenectady, New York, brought down the Hudson River to New York, the New York Naval Yard, where they would be outfitted with a steam engine and a spar torpedo for an attack that he had been concocting in his head about how he was going to do this. No Confederate vessel had ever been destroyed by a Union torpedo. There had been a number of Union vessels destroyed by Confederate torpedoes, but not the other way around. But in this case, this torpedo would have to be hand deployed. So Cushing comes up with this brazen plan of bringing the launches down from New York. He would steam them through what basically is today the Intracoastal Waterway, all the way down to southeastern Virginia, and then down through the canal to the mouth of the Albemarle Sound, and then when the conditions were right, would go up the Roanoke River, the 8 miles from the mouth of the river to the town, and try to destroy the Albemarle. Other officers, Union naval officers, had made the trek up the river to reconnoiter or scout out the Confederate forces at Plymouth and the location of the Albemarle. So a lot of the legwork had already been done for Cushing in terms of the local intel, and he would use this to his advantage. There would be one aborted attempt to get up the Roanoke on the night of the 26th. The weather was so bad that they actually turned back. Plus, the steam engines on the launches made way too much noise. So the next day, they built a covering for the launches because they knew, I mean, you know the Roanoke River, I mean, it's only 200 yards wide at most of the way up. And they're going to be Confederate sentinels on both sides of the river. So you need the cover of darkness, preferably really bad weather, and you need for those steam engines to make as little noise as possible. The next night, even though it was cold and rainy, they made another attempt. And Cushing, with 14 men in his launch, would tow a gig with 13 other sailors. And I'll tell you now that when he asked for volunteers, it was one of those moments where everyone stepped forward to volunteer, and he could only take about 25 guys. And but he told them up front, he said, this is a suicide mission. Chances are we're not coming back. But if we succeed, there will be glory and there will be promotion, but don't count on it. Now, who will volunteer? And everyone stepped forward. And he said, well, I can only take you and you and you and you. So he had about 25 guys with him all total, 13 of them in the gig, 14 in his launch, and he towed the gig all the way up the Roanoke River, 8 miles. And it was about 2:30 before they approached within about a mile of the town, and there was a vessel called the Southfield, which had been lost during the earlier fight. And Cushing presumed that there would be a guard on board the Southfield looking for attempts to get up the river to destroy the Albemarle. The Confederates had good intel too. They were on the watch for someone to come up the river to try and attack the Albemarle. Well, they were able to pass within 20 yards of the Southfield. The Confederates were on board the vessel. They passed by undetected. Then they got further up the river, and of course, in the darkness, it's now about 3 o'clock in the morning, he can see this murky shape. It must be the Albemarle. Of course, as he got closer and closer, he could see it, and his plan was to hijack it. He was going to go ashore and attack it from the land side, and had brought along with him a Union flag, so that when he hijacked it, he could raise the flag up and steam the Albemarle all the way down to the mouth of the river and turn it over to the blockading force in Albemarle Sound. But as he approached the Albemarle, what gave him away were not slumbering Confederate soldiers awakened by the noise. It was a Confederate dog. A dog heard him coming and started barking, which is what awoke the Confederate soldiers, They could hear the chugga, 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 chugga of the steam engine, lit their bonfires on shore. Then they could see Cushing coming and immediately opened fire on him with their small arms, rifle muskets, revolvers, and so forth. Cushing, of course, he realized everything at stake. There was no turning back at this point. He had told his men, remember, this is a suicide mission. So he approached the Albemarle, determined to destroy it. But just as he got closer, he recognized that there was an apron or a boom of logs that had been put out into the river, just in case there was an attempt to sabotage the vessel. And as Cushing approached, he realized, you know what, I can't attack it the way I want to. What I'm going to have to do is circle all the way back around and hit that log boom, that apron, head on, and hope that it's been in the river long enough that the logs will be slimy, and that if I hit it fast enough that the launch will go over the top of the slimy logs and into the inside between the boom and the ship, and then I can deploy my torpedo. Now keep in mind that there's boom, boom, plinking all around him, small arms fire, and Cushing's making all these decisions, under heavy fire. And he goes around, does what he plans to do, circles back around, and then he hits that log boom head on, and sure enough, his launch does exactly what he planned to do. He'd already released the gig, got rid of those guys. You go back down and secure the south field so that when we come back by, we won't have any problems, because of course all the firing is going to alert the Confederates on board the south field that something's amiss up at Plymouth. So now his launch is just on the top of the log apron, and the prow of the boat just kind of depresses a little bit. And of course there's sailors on board the Albemarle. There are soldiers that are now lining the banks, and Cushing's men are illuminated by the bonfires, and they are just shooting at him. And Cushing said the entire back part of my coat was torn away, one of my heels and my shoes was torn away. He said my guys were getting shot and wounded left and right, but he kept his cool, he kept his wits about him, and once he was atop that log boom, he took that handheld torpedo, and they had practiced for weeks how they were going to do this. And he pushed that thing up underneath the knuckle bow of the vessel and released the torpedo so that it then floated up underneath the vessel. And then when the line was taut, he pulled it, basically detonating the torpedo. Simultaneously with the explosion of a 7-inch Brook rifle on board the Albemarle, and he could hear the guys inside the ship giving orders on loading that big giant cannon to fire on him. And he calculated, I got about 20 seconds. All right, now I've got about 15 seconds. What's going to happen first? They're either going to blow me apart first, or I'm going to blow them up. And apparently the explosions were simultaneous. And he said the funnel of water created by the explosion of the torpedo, which blew a hole in the hull of the Albemarle, he said you could drive a wagon through it. I mean, it was huge. And that was simultaneous with the detonation on board the vessel of that Brook rifle. And he said all of that commotion and chaos and the water, he said, just completely flattened my launch. And he said, I turned to my men, I said, every man for himself. Get out while you can. And because the guys on shore were calling for his surrender. Surrender, we will cease our firing. And Cushing said twice, I refused him. No, I'm not surrendering. I'm going to blow you. And then it was every man for himself. He jumped overboard. Most of his men were killed, wounded, or captured. He and one other man managed to escape. And one man, Cushing tried to save in the middle of the river because, of course, you want to get as far away from the shoreline as you possibly can. So they dived into the river, swam out into the middle of the river, and then let the current take them as far downriver as they possibly could. And one young man, Cushing tried to hold on to and get him to shore, but he said, it's cold, the water's freezing cold, we are absolutely exhausted, we're mentally, physically exhausted from the mission. And he said, I could not hold on to this guy, and he lost him. And he sank beneath the waves of the river and disappeared. Cushing, however, managed to make it downriver, and then to shore. But he said, once I reached the shore, I was so exhausted, I literally could not pull myself up into a hiding place. And he said, I collapsed right there on the edge of the river. And next morning, I was awakened by some Confederate officers who were looking for him, walking along the riverfront, talking about the Albemarle. And he said, I got into some reeds, I hid away. A black man came along a little bit later, and I said, can you go to Plymouth and find out about the Albemarle? And he said, sure enough, the black man came back a little bit later and said, you got him, man, you got him. He said, I gave the guy a $20 gold piece, thanks a lot. He had succeeded in his mission. Now he's got to get back to the blockading force at the mouth of the river. It's, from his point, about 6 more miles. So he starts to walk. He discovers a dinghy on the river shore and steals it and rows the rest of the way down the Roanoke River, like this, just completely exhausted. And what kept him going, he literally put himself into a trance. And his word, what do you call it when you're in a trance and you come up with a word? His mantra was Cushing. Cushing, 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 Cushing. He chanted his own name. That was his mantra to get back to the blockading force. And he succeeded. He succeeded. His commanding officer said this was the most daring mission of the Civil War. He would receive the thanks of the U.S. Congress, the 5th one of the war, incidentally. He would receive the personal thanks of the President of the United States of America, and he would become an international hero. Not in the South, of course. In the North and overseas, he was the man. And with the loss of the Albemarle, Union forces were indeed able to recapture Plymouth and regain control of northeastern North Carolina. He was so popular at that point that there was a series, I have found like 6 photographs taken at a single sitting. This being one of them. He was promoted lieutenant commander, his highest rank in the Civil War at least. And there are a series of photographs taken of him. And then he became executive officer on board the USS Malvern, commanded by the new commander of the North Atlantic Blockading Squadron, David Dixon Porter. And here he is, Cushing over here, the long hair tucked behind his ears, looking like a hippie from the 1960s, but just the darling of the United States Navy at that point. And I'll just tell you that he ends up at the end of the war continuing to do that kind of service with the Navy. He was at both Fort Fisher attacks, which were the largest naval bombardments of the Civil War, the largest amphibious operations in American military history until D-Day, World War II. And Cushing was right there in the thick of the fighting. Again, just sort of adding to his legend. At war's end, he had a very difficult time adjusting to the peacetime Navy. As you can imagine, he had built up this tremendous reputation. He had gained great skills fighting against an enemy, and his temperament and personality was just not suited to the peacetime Navy. He served in the Asiatic Squadron, the Pacific Squadron. He served at various naval yards, the Boston Yard, the New York Yard, eventually the Washington Yard. But he had a very difficult time making that transition. And I want you to look very carefully in the eyes of this young man. This photograph taken about 1870, and look how he has changed since the wartime. That sweetness is gone, and there is an intense edge to Cushing by 1870. In fact, his brother naval officer said that the war changed him, that he became much more aggressive. At times he could be very difficult, even very aggressive. And they weren't sure what was going to happen to him or why his personality had changed as much as it did. He did marry in 1870, Catherine Louise Forbes, beautiful young lady, and they had 2 daughters, both of whom were very young when Cushing died. By the fall of 1874, he was demonstrating such weird symptoms, terrible, terrible headaches, very aggressive, even abusive personality. And finally, in early December, they put him into the Washington Insane Asylum. Not because they thought that he was insane. He was having some issues, but that was the closest hospital to the Washington Navy Yard. So historians who know about his last days believe that he died of a diseased brain. His death certificate said that he died of acute mania, whatever that meant. And I thought for the longest time that he probably died of the long-range effects of tuberculosis that had killed his father, had killed 2 of his siblings, ran rampant through the family. And if you survive it long enough, you can develop polyps on the brain. And I thought that's probably what killed him. But a neurologist who heard me give this presentation a year or so ago said, you know what, there's another possibility. That the trauma, the brain trauma created by that attack on the Albemarle with the simultaneous explosion of the Brooke rifle that close, he said it was within 15 feet of me, and the torpedo at exactly the same time, she said, you know, that just might have caused some very serious neurological problems for him. So we don't know. What we do know, however, is that he was buried at Bluff Point at the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. The very school that 13 years earlier had kicked him out. They buried him with honors on the grounds of the Naval Academy. You can go there to this day, and there's that huge monument, William B. Cushing, and on it, on the other side, it says Albemarle, CSS Albemarle. So he was known as Albemarle Cushing for much of his life. His daughters grew up fatherless, as he did. They never married, nor did Robert E. Lee's daughters. Who was going to match Daddy? So his wife, Catherine, a beautiful young lady, though widowed at a very young age, never remarried. And like Libby Cushing, she did all that she could, and then the daughters spent the rest of their life promoting their father and his great service to the United States Navy. And that's what kept his memory alive for as long as they did. Now, he was a great hero. This is a Grand Army of the Republic unit that clearly, this is from New York, clearly if you look carefully you can see a portrait. I have no idea where this portrait is. There's William Barker Cushing. So this is a GAR post that would have been named for William Barker Cushing. There have been 5 United States Navy vessels named for Cushing, including what were called torpedo boats in the late 19th century. This one being the second USS Cushing. There have been 2 destroyers named for Cushing. The last one just decommissioned about 6 years ago. So the Navy continues to honor him. The Naval Academy continues to honor him and study his exploits during the war. And again, he emerges from the war better known than any naval officer except Admiral Farragut, making a great name for the United States Navy, a great service for the country, and of course, a great name for himself. So that was William Barker Cushing. Okay. I will end this presentation by just very briefly telling you that in late June, we are going to hold a symposium in Wilmington to commemorate the sinking of the Blockade Runner Modern Greece. You heard me earlier mention the importance of the blockade running trade to the Confederate war effort. At least 50% of everything the Confederacy consumed, ate, used, whatever, came in through the Union naval blockade. And the most important seaport was Wilmington by 1863. And I personally believe that by the latter part of 1864, Wilmington was the most important city in the Confederacy. Virginians will argue me till the sun goes down on this one. But you could have moved the political capital from Richmond to Danville or Greensboro or Charlotte or any other city. But even Robert E. Lee said, Wilmington's so important that I cannot maintain my army if it falls. One of the ships that ran aground in trying to enter the harbor was a British steamer called the Modern Greece, salvaged in 1862 and then rediscovered exactly 100 years later after an Easter storm. And then the United States Navy and the state archives together excavated the vessel, finding probably as much, if not more, supplies still on board that vessel as there were in 1862. And what it did was it launched our country's first underwater archaeology program that's still headquartered at Fort Fisher, the North Carolina Underwater Archaeology Branch, the first one in the country. So we've got the sinking of the vessel exactly 150 years ago, and then 50 years ago, the launching of our country's first underwater archaeology program. So we're going to commemorate those activities with a symposium on June the 26th at UNCW. We've got some great speakers coming in, the noted authorities on the blockade running trade, on the blockade, and on the modern Greece. And I've left over here some flyers for you if you are interested. I will tell you, sign up quickly because we've got space at the university that will accommodate only about 125 people, and it is filling up fast. So if you're interested, please register as soon as you can. The idea is that not only are we going to commemorate the trade and the ship, we have just received authorization to erect a North Carolina Highway Historical Marker. That's just been approved. And the fact that I'm on the committee has absolutely nothing to do with it. But the other idea is to raise enough funds to help conserve the 11,000 plus artifacts that we still have that need conservation, these being some of them. Everything from military equipment to hardware to medical equipment and so forth. So I hope you'll attend, and I do appreciate y'all inviting me. And Barbara, I'm sorry it took me so long to come up here.